It was supposed to be just a nostalgia trip, a lighthearted tribute to a beloved TV show. But as the camera lingers on a faded photograph of a young pigtailed woman in gingham, the silence feels heavy. The girl next door from Gilligan's Island is gone, and with her, the last real connection to a golden era of TV. Marianne Summers was stranded on a deserted island. But she wasn't abandoned in our hearts. For millions, she was the gentle voice of kindness, the hopeful smile in a sea of absurdity. That character was eternally cheerful, optimistic, and strong in her simplicity. But the life behind that character, the life of Dawn Wells, was not always so sunlit. Born in Reno, Nevada, in 1938, Dawn Alberta Wells grew up with big dreams. She entered the Miss America pageant for her state, carrying not just a crown, but a quiet confidence. She studied theater arts at the University of Washington, ready for anything. Then, by what seemed like fate, she auditioned for a show about castaways stranded on an island. She beat out hundreds, about 350 actresses competing to become Marianne, and so she became a household name. Gilligan's Island aired for just 3 short seasons, but Marianne lasted much longer in the public consciousness. She was innocent but not naive, gentle but far from helpless. But as the credits rolled on that final episode, and the concert lights dimmed, Dawn Wells' journey was far from over. Over the decades, she wove a career across television, film, and theater. She appeared on shows like Growing Pains, The Bold and the Beautiful, Roseanne, even Babe. She published a book too, What Would Marianne Do? A guide to life offering wisdom from the character she inhabited. But behind the roles and the pages, a quieter narrative began to emerge, one of financial hardship, of loneliness, of real human fragility. As the years passed, the cast of Gilligan's Island dwindled. Bob Denver, Alan Hale Jr., Jim Backus, Natalie Schafer, Russell Johnson, they all passed on. For many, Dawn Wells was the last true living link to that little 3-hour tour. But her life took an unexpected turn. In 2018, a GoFundMe campaign raised more than $180,000 to help her with medical expenses. She was reluctant, embarrassed even to accept help. But she agreed, quietly admitting that retirement was harsher than she once believed it would be. Here I am. No family, no husband, no kids, and no money. She shared with a friend. It was a heartbreaking twist. The girl next door, who made us feel comforted in our living rooms, facing real hardship. The world that had adored Marianne had not protected Dawn. As the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe in late 2020, the tragedy deepened. Dawn contracted the virus. She grew steadily weaker. At 82, she passed away on December 30, 2020, in Los Angeles, peacefully. According to her publicist, in no pain, but leaving behind a void. Her death was tied to COVID-19 complications. Suddenly, Marianne was gone. What did those final days feel like for her? We can only imagine a quiet room in an assisted living facility, the phone beside her bed, perhaps a short film or a memory flickering on a screen. Her publicist said she was surrounded by care, not in pain. But the scene feels cinematic, tragic, and deeply human. A star who once floated in the warm glow of sitcom spotlights, now fading in gentle solitude. There is something deeply poetic and haunting about the way her life came full circle. Dawn Wells, the actress who embodied Marianne, was once stranded among fictional castaways. But in her final years, she found herself marooned again, not by an island, but by time, by illness, by the loneliness that too often haunts aging artists. Her death left Tina Louise Ginger Grant as the only surviving regular from the original Gilligan's Island cast. It feels symbolic, the glamorous movie star still standing, while the sweet, kind Marianne is gone. Life mirrored fiction in a bittersweet echo, and yet, her legacy remains. Fans organized tributes, shared memories, and highlighted her generosity. In life, she helped form a nonprofit, the Idaho Film and Television Institute. People remember Marianne not just as a TV character, but as a force of good in a chaotic world. Steady, sincere, and gentle. So what should we take away from her story? Dawn Wells was never just Marianne. She was a woman of brilliance, of heart, of struggle. Her life reminds us that underneath every beloved character is a real person, vulnerable, imperfect, human. Her death is a stark reminder. Fame and laughter do not shield us from pain. We carry regrets. We face mortality. We need compassion. When we think of Gilligan's Island, we often do so with nostalgia, the innocent jokes, the campy adventures, the notion of escape. But in remembering Dawn Wells, we are brought back to reality. Her journey challenges us. How do we care for the people who brought us joy? How do we support those whose smiles masked deeper suffering? And as the years go by, who will be there to tell that story? Maybe, in the end, Marianne isn't stranded at all. Maybe she walked off the screen, held our hearts for decades, and left behind something more than laughter. She left humanity. And that is the real legacy of Dawn Wells, the tragic castaway whose final home was not an island, but our memory.